Hi there, I'm Jonathan Larson, I'm an extension entomologist for the University of Kentucky. I'm out here at our beautiful South Farm today in front of one of our high tunnels, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about high tunnel insects, pests that get in there, and also talk about how to scout for those insects. So when we think about a high tunnel, I know when I first encountered these just a couple of years ago, I thought of them as this sort of really impressive looking structure that surely kept some of the pests away from our plants. It seems like it offers maybe some of the best of both worlds of a greenhouse and the field. And that is true. We do have some of those nice benefits from both of those areas, but it also, in terms of insect and mite pests, can offer some of the worst of both worlds. We do get a lot of the greenhouse type pests that pop up in these structures, but since we're opening them up as well, we're in the field, we're in the ground, we actually end up with some of those field-based pests as well. And unfortunately, there's some research from other universities that has demonstrated that once these pests get into the high tunnel, they can do better into the high tunnel than they do out in the field. Things like the tomato hornworm, while they're out in the field, they're exposed to predators and parasitoids. Once they get into the high tunnel, though, they get a lot of the protection that we give to the plants. They're afforded that same protection, so things that want to eat them or lay their eggs in them are unfortunately not around. They're also weak, and those things can munch away happily and destroy quite a bit of our crops. So if we want to be pest-free, you have to think of this as more of a management situation than an eradication situation. That's why we call it integrated pest management. We want to try and keep these populations as low as possible. And to best do that, you have to practice the first maxim of IPM, which is monitoring. We're going to go into the high tunnel, and we're going to show you some different monitoring methods. So active monitoring, that's when we're going to go into the tunnel and try and teach growers about how to get out there and actually look at the things that are happening with their plants. So active monitoring is a very key part of IPM. We can't just be passive. We can't just be waiting for these things to appear and to react to them. We need to be out there making sure that nothing is popping up on the plant. So some things to do with this active monitoring include just getting up close and personal with the plants, getting to know what looks normal, what doesn't look normal. For the most part today in the tunnel that we're in, everything looks pretty copacetic. Everybody looks pretty happy. I'm not seeing a lot of pests, but I wouldn't know that if I hadn't come out here and started monitoring. So what you want to do is get up close and personal, use things like a hand lens or a jeweler's loupe, look at the leaves, see what you can see if there's anything crawling around. You'd be looking for aphids and mites, even eggs left behind by these things. If you can spot those, you can crush them as you go, do some physical pest control, and defeat your enemies very quickly and efficiently like that. But you can also just get a better idea of how many of these are maybe invading the tunnel. And knowing that gives you an idea of what you need to do next. If you aren't keeping track of those populations, they can boom. Once they hit a certain level, a certain number, it's very hard to control them without intervening with one of our heavier duty insecticides or what have you. So we do need to be out here actively looking. So doing an inspection with your eyes, with your hand lens, you can also use white pieces of paper and knock leaves over them and then take a close look to see if anything's moving around on there. You'd be looking for small things that look like punctuation marks that are crawling on the page. And all of that is going to help you to see what populations there are. If you can't find anything, but things still don't look quite right, if you're noticing cupped and curled leaves, if you're noticing honeydew accumulating on the plant, if you're noticing what we call stippling, which is where there's kind of yellow dots or white dots appearing in the leaves, all of those are symptoms left behind the pests. So those are also indicators that you have an issue that you may need to take some action on. This active monitoring should probably be done at least on a weekly basis, and you should keep records of it. If you were to walk around in our tunnel here today, you would notice that there are letters on the walls and there are numbers on the rows so that we know which sector we're in. We're in A1 or we're in J3. And you can keep notes of where you're seeing the different pests. That tells you over time where things are hot spots, what places you probably needed to monitor over a long period of time. And if you keep detailed notes on that every year, you'll have that information in your back pocket so that you know what you may be dealing with on a yearly basis. After this active monitoring, though, we do also need to introduce some passive monitoring methods, which we'll show you now. Here we have some of our passive monitoring tools. You can't be in the high tunnel all the time. The growers can't be out there doing that active monitoring at all times. So we do want some traps left behind that can tell us what's going on as well. The best traps that I can recommend for use in the high tunnel are our sticky cards. You see the two main colors here with yellow and we have blue. Blue is usually pretty specific for thrips, but you can catch a few other things on it. We tend to think of the yellow card as much more of a catch-all. We see lots of different pests pop up on these. Whiteflies, aphids, thrips even will pop up on there. This one is sort of the catch-all. If you want to get more broad, I would focus on yellow. If you can get both, it's good to pair them up though. The other thing you'll notice is how we have applied them. So sticky cards, they can hang down from a string. You can purchase metal clips with them occasionally, but you can also simply take two clothespins and glue them together, and one of the clothespins will hold the sticky card itself, and the other one will hold it to whatever structure you're clipping it to. And you just want to keep these mobile. You don't want it to be hard to move. That's why I like these clips like this, because you want to keep the sticky cards right at the top of the plant's height. That's where the pests are going to be best monitored, and it's going to help you out in the long run. These do need to be collected and monitored on a regular basis. I know some folks, they just set a sticky card out and then maybe a couple years later go and grab it. That's not very helpful. It's not a good application of the technology. So every other week, I would encourage you to switch these out, get a fresh card going, and then take the cards that you've collected and look very closely at them and see what you're catching. Monitor what pests are on there. Keep those in your notes as well, and that'll tell you where hot spots are, where invasions occur. Because of these sticky cards, we've actually figured out in the tunnel I'm standing in that the north end tends to get invaded first rather than the south end. And that knowledge is a result of keeping track of all this information. So these will help you by capturing those pests. It is not a control tool. It's something that's used for monitoring only, but it will tell you where the bugs are, what you're dealing with, which will give you a good idea about what you need to do next. These are the tips and tricks that we have for monitoring. These are the things that will keep you ahead of those pest populations. Monitoring is essential to implementing an actual integrated pest management approach. In a lot of cases, we love to just spray and pray afterwards and hope we don't see anything. But this keeps you abreast of developments in the tunnel, makes you much less reactive, and it makes it so that you can target applications of either organic insecticides, synthetic insecticides, or biocontrol agents for the problems you actually have on hand. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to hear them. You can find us on the web and everything, but hopefully these tools will help you in the future.